What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back. This is the Deep Corner, episode 23. I'm Rob St. Clair, and as you can see, I don't have a guest with me today. I'm trying something a little bit different. You got just me this time. Don't worry, we got guests back coming on Friday. But I've been wanting to try out this little different format for a little while now. Just want to get on just by myself, get everyone to know me just a little bit better, and talk about something that I've been wanting to get into on the show for a while now, and that is volleyball broadcasting. So for those of you that have just been watching the show recently and only know me as a podcast host or an interview guy or whatever, it's actually not my biggest responsibility with the VLA. What I'm actually going to be doing the most once we're able to get out and play matches again is play-by-play commentating the matches that you're seeing on live stream. It's a thing I got into several years ago as just kind of an interest of mine, and I didn't actually get to do it in real life or real time until an event at Volleyball's gym in November of 2018. So I'm coming up on 2 years of doing a bunch of matches with the teams that you're about to become really familiar with and see for the VLA this summer. But it's something I've always been really interested in. I think, one, I'm just a really big volleyball fan, and two, I have a really good memory, and so I know players, I know names, I know jersey numbers, I know old matches and tournaments and college stuff from all the players and all kinds of stuff like that. So I don't have to rely on data in front of me all that much. And I just, I like getting on the mic and talking about volleyball. It's my favorite thing to do. So something that a lot of people have noticed, that anyone who is, I would call an experienced volleyball watcher, who will go out of their way to different places on the internet to try and watch volleyball at whatever levels, but the highest levels in particular, especially those with volleyball backgrounds. A lot of people who go out and watch it all the time are frustrated with the quality of the commentary that they're hearing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. So I think what it is a lot of times there's exactly two things going on. The best example I can give is women's NCAA. So any women's NCAA match that is broadcasted during the regular season up until the NCAA tournament, where they start to get some really big names behind the mic, which I'll talk about in a little bit. A lot of what you see going on, like for example, I'm in the Midwest, I'm in Big Ten country, the Big Ten, the best conference by far in NCAA women's volleyball, and all the Big Ten network shows a lot of women's volleyball during the season because it's popular. It's one of the network's most viewed sports, obviously behind football and men's basketball, but I think it might be the third. And unfortunately, even as high as its viewership is, the broadcasting quality or like the commentating quality of those matches is not doing the game justice. So I think part of the reason is you usually have a color guy, like a play-by-play guy, and an analyst. So those are the two different people that have their kind of set roles. And you see that across all sports. You've got, for example, Tony Romo and Jim Nance. So Jim Nance is the color guy for CBS football. He's Jim Nance doing play-by-play, doing, talking about the plays, what's going on as they're happening. And then when the play is over, you got Tony Romo, who is the former professional football player who knows a lot about the X's and O's of the game, who breaks down kind of the play that he just saw and has become infamous for predicting what plays are coming next, which is cool. So that's kind of the two rules of any broadcast in any sport. And so in volleyball, the problem is that volleyball is so fast and complex and technical that it's actually really difficult to commentate it well. And it's especially the case when your play-by-play guy or girl, doesn't know the sport that well. And so on BTN, their biggest issues, it's usually some, professional, like I would say classically trained, like person who went to communication school or, went to school, wants to make broadcasting their career, is good at several different sports, but doesn't have a volleyball background. And the BTN, for example, will just like throw this person behind the mic for a volleyball match and say, "Oh yeah, it's volleyball. Like I'm sure you'll be fine. You're trained. You can figure it out." It's actually not the case, and you can tell. Experienced volleyball viewers can tell when somebody doesn't know what the person in the off-color jersey is, what the libero is, what some of the rules are, like why the whistle is being blown in certain situations, like if a back row attack is called and they seem clueless as to why the play ended, not knowing terminology all that well, like using cringeworthy terms that us like volleyball diehards hate, like spike and bump and I don't know, stuff like that. That kind of drives us nuts, and I think it takes away from the viewing experience because you can tell, at least I even think that non-seasoned volleyball viewers can tell, but you can definitely tell if you know the game really well that the person that's bringing you the match from a play-by-play perspective doesn't really know what they're talking about. On volleyball, they are good at talking on a mic. They're good at seeing what's in front of them and responding to it the best they know how, because that's what they do. That's what they're trained to do. But if they don't have a volleyball background, it's actually very, very difficult to commentate the sport well. Now, if you pair that with an analyst who is commonly a former player or a coach or something like that, that does know the game well, you would think that that might help. But actually, sometimes it hurts really badly, because even though the analyst person knows the sport well, that person is not comfortable talking about what they're seeing on a microphone. And just because, like, a high volleyball IQ and being comfortable on a microphone do not necessarily go hand in hand. It is a hard thing to do, just to get on a mic and talk sometimes. Like, I know people who are way smarter about the game than me that could never do it in their wildest dreams, just because they don't have the right, I don't know, way of processing what they're saying and thinking and then saying it in a, new and different, exciting way, in a way that makes sense to viewers. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. So if you pair a person who doesn't know the sport that well but is good at play-by-play, and a person who knows the game but isn't very good at talking at all, it's actually kind of the worst possible combination. It can be really frustrating when you have a person, your play-by-play guy or girl sees the whistle blow, hears the whistle blow, the play ends, and he or she has no idea how to explain what happened, and they try to lean on their analyst for some support, and the analyst knows what happened but just doesn't do that good of a job of explaining it. And I think everybody who's watched, gone out of their way to watch volleyball kind of knows what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things that make volleyball commentating hard, and I'll get into kind of what I think that I'm good at about it, or what I try to be good at about it, and what I've tried to emulate about the people who I really think are the best. So first of all, just to start kind of naming off who I think are the best in the game, I think the gold standard right now for volleyball broadcasting, especially in the U.S., is a guy named Paul Sunderland, does the play-by-play, and his partner is Kevin Barnett, does the color and the analysis. So Sunderland played on the men's national team back in the 70s, and he, after his volleyball playing career, because he has a very strong volleyball background, he went on to be a professional color commentator in several sports. Actually, I think he did the LA Lakers, home broadcasts in LA for a very long time. And Barnett played on the national team in 2000 and 2004. So both have very strong volleyball backgrounds. Sunderland then, after his playing career, went on to pursue broadcasting for real. He did it as a very real career. And Paul Sunderland is the first guy to get called up by ESPN or whoever to broadcast the national championship games. So NCAA Women's Division I championship games, almost always you will have Paul Sunderland as the main guy on the mic, as well as for the men's finals. The men's finals get much less TV coverage than the women's do. The women's Final Four, at the very least, will all have Paul Sunderland on ESPN usually, and the men's finals definitely will as well. I know Sunderland and Barnett together as a duo have a deal with NBC where they do the Olympics. So that's where people will have heard these guys. You'll recognize their voices. And actually later in a couple minutes, I'm going to pull up a video of a match that I really like that Paul Sunderland did of the men's national team a few summers ago. And he actually did it by himself. And I commentate by myself as well. So I want to show that and kind of present my feedback on what he's doing really, really well, because he does just about everything really well. So Sunderland and Barnett are great at what they do because they have really good chemistry together. They have a lot of respect for each other's volleyball IQ, and they both have just really strong volleyball backgrounds. And there's really just no substitute for that. If you know the game, that is just a tremendous advantage when you get put behind a mic to try and describe what is going on to people watching at home. And it's a hard game to describe. It's like I've talked about on the podcast a couple times before, just from a viewing perspective, volleyball has a really unique kind of cadence to it. It's, while the action is going on, it's ridiculously fast paced, and you can't really take that much time to explain one contact as it's happening, because the next contact is just about to happen, and it might be totally different or just as important, if not more. But then after the play, you've got 30 seconds, 45 seconds at least while the teams reset and you get ready to play the next point. There aren't that many other sports like that. Like basketball, soccer, hockey are kind of nonstop action for the most part. Football is way even more so the other extreme, which is, maybe 5-10 seconds of action at most, and then a very long break in the action. So it makes it different to commentate volleyball, especially just because of the speed of the game, and what's happening on the court is tough to describe quickly. And if you aren't really comfortable with exactly what you're seeing when you're trying to broadcast it, you're going to get behind and you're not going to sound professional like you know what was going on. And I commend Sunderland and Barnett tremendously for being so good at their jobs. Sunderland in particular is the guy that I've kind of modeled my broadcasting after when I commentate by myself in particular. But past those two guys, I can't really think of anybody else in the world who speaks English, commentates in English, that does it a whole lot better than I think I can do it. A lot of the times for NCAA women's, Sunderland will get paired with Karch Kirai, who obviously is the coach of the women's national team right now, the winningest beach volleyball player of all time, an indoor gold medalist, an absolute just rock star, like probably the Michael Jordan of volleyball. And as the current coach of the women's national team, his volleyball IQ is absolutely off the charts. And he does the analysis a lot of the time for the women's Final Four when Sunderland is doing the play-by-play. But Karch, as much as he knows about the game, and he actually is pretty comfortable on a microphone, there's just something missing there, in my opinion, when he is on the mic with Sunderland talking about women's Division I or whatever it is. Part of that is I think that he is kind of all the time scouting what he's seeing for his own program. But I think a lot of it too is that he just doesn't get excited enough about what's going on the floor. He's kind of in a position as a coach where he kind of can't. It's kind of his style, his in particular, not to get that excited about what's going on. So when he does analysis, I've noticed that he's very, very just emotionally level in volume, level in intensity and excitement. And Sunderland, I think, kind of gets brought down by that. So Karch, as much as he knows about the game, may not be the best analyst in the world, because just as a viewer, especially one who doesn't know the game all that well, when you hear Karch doing analysis, like, you can probably understand that the guy's really good at talking about the game and really knows what he's talking about, but that doesn't mean that you're excited about it. And something that I really try and do when I'm on the mic is really to get people excited about the plays that are happening, and that especially to cater towards the people who don't know the game super duper well. And so if Karch is, explaining heavy X's and O's of a play, or another thing that he can sometimes do, break down the rules to such a basic level that it's actually slow and you feel like you're being talked down to. When he does that, it's hard to get excitement out of that. And I instead try to just use, vocal tone, volume, just straight up excitement in whatever I'm saying, no matter what it is, to convey excitement in what's going on, whether it's situation, 24-24 in a set, or some ridiculous play that just happened at any point in the match. Whatever it is, I've gotten a lot of really great feedback since I've been commentating about how engaging and exciting I make volleyball sound, which is feedback I really appreciate, because I do that very intentionally. Okay, so yeah, that's a lot of info. There are several other guys that do high level volleyball commentary pretty consistently. There's a guy named Clayton Lucas who does a lot of the FIVB stuff. He does all the VNL stuff for the summer annual men's national team tournaments. He does a lot of women's too. The FIVB has a handful of guys. Most of them, I assume, are UK based, at least based on their accents, that will travel around to the VNL sites all across the world and broadcast them solo. And I just don't particularly like any of them all that much. Clayton Lucas does a good job of at least being excited. The other guys really don't. But a lot of the ways that they talk about the game, sometimes it just doesn't seem like they really know what they're looking at. And I like to think I really do know what I'm looking at. So a couple things that if anybody, I don't know, if anybody's wanting to get into volleyball broadcasting, the first thing that you can and actually must do is just know the sport. you got to know it. You got to have a playing background, a coaching background, a very, a seasoned viewing background, whatever it is. You got to know positions, you got to know terms, you got to know kind of how an offense works. You got to know high level strategy. You got to know the difference between a really good mistake and a really bad mistake. You got to know what's going on in the players' heads, at least to some degree. And then you have to know the rules. And that is one where a lot of people fall really short. Another one is you got to know the players. And I think I have an advantage on that because I'm watching the same guys play over and over again. It's hard for me to not know and remember the players. I think I have a pretty good memory for that sort of stuff. And the only thing I have in front of me is a piece of paper with things like jersey number, name, height, age, where they went to college. But most of that, by the time I'm preparing that sheet myself before the match, nobody does it for me. By the time I'm preparing all that stuff, I usually just know it all. I don't need to look at the paper every time I see a player. I just usually know it and can recite it right away. And that makes the flow of commentating what's going on feel a lot more natural if I don't have to like pause and look down at my roster sheet. And I think that in the instances that I do have to do that, you can tell, and it's not so fluid and not so great. Another thing is, especially when I'm doing it by myself, I try to change up over, in a period of 10 or 15 points, kind of the cadence of how I broadcast a point. So I think some of the time I'll be in a very classical play-by-play situation where I'm kind of narrating the touches as they're happening. Like, this guy's preparing to serve. I'll say perfect pass from the libero. This guy set outside to outside hitter. This guy, he takes a high hard swing off the block and scores. That's his, 9th kill of the match, whatever it is. So like while the action is happening, I'll be talking pretty much the whole time. And I'm talking about like who's touching the ball, what's going on as it's happening. And then, but that gets old because I think if I do that the entire match long, it kind of takes away from the speed and just the pure, like taking it all in aspect of watching volleyball. So what I'll do is then I'll shift every 12 or 15 points to not talking nearly as much, if at all, while action is going on, and wait until the play is over to kind of wrap it all up what we just saw in that rally. And that's much more the analyst role. So when I'm doing it by myself, I have the flexibility to go back and forth and do those two things. If I actually have never commentated with someone else before, I can't decide if I would want to do that or not, to be honest with you. But if I had an analyst with me, then it would be a lot more traditional in the sense that I would be talking during the plays a lot. My analyst would be talking in between the plays, and that's fine. But when I'm by myself, since I don't want people to get that sick of my own voice, which is a serious danger, trust me, if you've listened to this the whole way, you already know that. I got to mix it up a little bit. I got to mix up if I'm, talking during the point or between the points to make it not get quite so stale. And then like I was saying before about excitement, just understanding, it comes with the understanding of the game and the situation when I really need to bring excitement to a call. If there's some like straight down, like 8-foot line bounce from a right side that, just explodes on impact and everyone's oohing and ahhing, and then it immediately belongs on the highlight reel. The first thing that people are going to hear who are watching it online, and then when that highlight is captured for online content for the VLA to be put out later as like highlight videos, my call is going to be attached to that play. So even if the play is awesome and I don't do it justice when I commentate it with the right amount of excitement, it just doesn't quite give it the same like level of excitement that the play deserves. So the responsibility is on me to bring the heat on the mic, honestly. I've got to give the plays the justice that they deserve in terms of excitement. Otherwise, the people at home watching won't quite get that sense of excitement. The same goes for really intense situations in matches. If it's 25-25, if it's 13-13 in set 5, regardless of what's going on, I'm going to get a little bit more into it because volleyball has such this unique thing where we don't play on the clock. We don't have buzzer beaters in the sport of volleyball. What we do have is palpable and more predictable situations of tension when you know that somebody has to win by 2, and if it's 24-24 or 25-24, you know that the set or the match could end at any moment, but you don't know if it will. Whatever. It's a very different style of intensity late in the game that a lot of other sports really don't have, which I think is really cool. And again, the responsibility is kind of on me as the commentator to give those moments the intense feeling that they deserve, especially when it comes to making clear what's on the line, where that match stands in the regular season or the playoffs, or what's at stake. And that's something that I should have been talking about throughout the entire match. It's important for me to make clear the context of the match and where it sits. And sometimes it's hard to do that because the game is so full of action that I'll have to take either the duration of a timeout or commit in between a play to talking about why this match matters and the history and all that stuff. But it's important to set the stage like that for people who just might be tuning in and haven't watched every match of the season or whatever and don't know, who's who in the regular season standings, who has what record, who's fighting for playoff spots or whatever our format this summer ends up being. It's my job to provide context, and if I do a good job of providing context, then when those intense situations come, they will feel more like there's really something on the line, and that there's a lot that I can do to increase the way that the viewer experiences that. So before I get into this video of Sunderland commentating the national team that I talked about a little bit ago, I want to talk about some of the iconic calls in sports history, some that just are immortalized, some that people will never forget, and really just paint the picture of how valuable and how important the play-by-play commentator is for just the overall viewership quality of a broadcast. Think Vern Lundquist at the 2005 Masters on hole 16 when Tiger Woods hits that impossible chip shot that on 16, it rolls down the hill, it hangs at the very, very edge of the hole, as dramatic as it gets, and then falls in. And Vern Lundquist, the legend, just oh, in your life have you seen anything like that? And then he also knows when to just stay off the mic and let the moment be the moment. And that call and that play, that moment in sports history has been viewed millions and millions and millions of times. And if you just see Tiger hit the shot in the roar of the crowd, it is, it's incredible, but it's not quite as good as when you have Vern Lundquist's iconic call behind it. And it's just the job of the play-by-play guy to just make those moments and just immortalize them with the way that you've described it and the way you've painted the picture of the situation. Another one that I love is Jim Nantz, who also does the Masters, but college basketball national championship game. I can't remember if it was 2016 or 2017. When Villanova played North Carolina in that absolute classic. It was late when I was in college, so I can't remember what year it was. And Jim Nantz, Ryan Arcidiacono drives. He gives the ball to Chris Jenkins, and Nantz gives Jenkins for the championship, and then he buries it in the hole. The stadium just explodes in excitement, and just the way that Nantz painted that was just an instantly iconic moment. And there are some other ones that even just aren't events or moments or memories of the significance of the Masters or of the college national championship game, but just some calls that are really great. Kevin Harlan is a guy that I'm a huge fan of. He does football, he does basketball. He's got one famous one that a lot of people probably will have heard of is LeBron James with no regard for human life. Come on, that's just a great call. It's kind of ridiculous, but everybody remembers it and everybody loves it, and it just kind of became a thing that everyone says and associates with that one play while he was in Cleveland. And there's another one when Tracy McGrady drove down the baseline and dunked on someone. It's oh, he just sucked the gravity right out of the building. What a play by T-Mac. That guy knows how to really just bring the excitement to a moment. And just the way that he just lays his emotions on the line for every game that he broadcasts in whatever sport he does, which is impressive to be so good at so many different sports broadcasting. He's a guy whose voice notes or little sound bites are all over several of the plays that you know and you've seen as being iconic in sports history. And it takes like stepping back and realizing how important that is to really notice and value what the play-by-play commentator really brings to a match. And in volleyball, we just don't get that much. It's hard for us to find good quality matches to watch anyway. And when we do, like even if the level of play is so ridiculously high and the match is amazing and the stakes are the Olympics or whatever, the Olympics, Barnett and Sunderland usually do a pretty good job of doing the matches justice. But I don't know, sometimes some great college matches or whatever it is, it just doesn't, the intensity and the importance of the matches and the feeling that you're supposed to get and the feeling that the people do get in the arena who are watching in person, you just don't get that at home, because the quality of broadcasting in our sport is just not where other sports are right now. It's because it's hard. There aren't trained volleyball broadcasters. There aren't that many people with the combination of skill sets of having a really strong volleyball background, having a high volleyball IQ, and also knowing how to get on a mic and talk about a match, and knowing the players and knowing the action, knowing how to describe it, knowing how to not be boring and how to be exciting. It's hard. And we don't get that much. We don't get that nearly as much as we deserve as viewers, as volleyball fans. And that's something that I try to do every time I get behind the mic. And man, am I missing it. I love broadcasting volleyball games so much. I think it's awesome. I relish the opportunity to put my voice over great moments in guys' careers, in team seasons, in whatever it is. So whenever the VLA gets back out on the court this summer, I cannot wait to get back behind the mic, because there are guys in this league and teams in this league who deserve to be seen and to be heard and to have their play and their caliber of play be done justice from a broadcasting point of view. And I'm going to try and do that every time I get out there this summer. So after all that, let's get on to this video. I'm going to set, as I switch scenes here on the video, I want to kind of set the stage for what this match was. So any of you listening on the audio podcast version, you'll be able to hear Sunderland commentate this. I encourage you to go back and watch the video on the VLA YouTube channel just to see the play that's happening on the screen so you can understand a little bit more. So this was the World League Finals in 2014. The U.S. was playing Brazil. The U.S. had won the World League last back in 2008, right when our guy Loy Ball was playing right before they won Olympic gold. Brazil contends in this tournament literally every year, like they do in every other tournament. This was Taylor Sanders' first year on the national team. It was really his coming out party. Reed Priddy had torn his ACL in the regular season of this tournament, like in the preliminary round or whatever. So the second outside hitter position for the U.S. was a spot of real need past Taylor Sanders. It was Matt Anderson's first real year playing opposite full-time. It was one of Micah Christensen's first years as the full-time setter. He was like 21. I think he was still in college. So that's kind of the stage. World League Finals for World League Gold, $1 million prize. It was played somewhere in Italy, so neither of these teams had home field advantage. But Italy, like we've talked about on the show several times, is an exceptional country for volleyball viewership and live spectating. They have an unbelievable league there, a very passionately followed national team, and people in the country of Italy know that when there's really good volleyball to watch in person, even if it's not Italy, they're going to go watch it. So Paul Sunderland did this match. He did it by himself. This is about a 3.5 minute kind of highlight video that was made after that match was over, and it features just the best moments from the match, several of which are incredible and I'll never forget. But I really like the way that Sunderland called a lot of these plays. So I'm going to play them a little bit at a time and just point out what I love, or sometimes what I wish I would have done in the way he called some of these plays. So we'll start off early on here in the match.
Tournament so far with 10 aces. That ball's off of Max Holt, off his leg, into the floor, and then back originally.
So that, if you didn't notice the scoreboard on that play, the score was 1-1 in set one. So it's literally the third point of the entire match. It's really, really early. So that is the disclaimer for my little bit of criticism on this. With as good of a swing and as good of a play, that was by Brazil. Bruno getting an absolutely free no-block look for Murillo on the right side in rotation one. Taylor Sanders totally gets fooled on that block. And Murillo makes just, no doubt about it, like 12 feet straight down into the floor. Like the crowd starts to feel the buzz. But like I said, it's really early in the match. Sunderland was opting for the approach, like I was saying, where he wasn't going to talk during the point that much, but was instead going to talk about it after. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on this because it was so early in the match, but I wish he had brought a little bit more excitement to that play. That play was pretty awesome. I think it deserved a little bit more than talking about how it went off Max Holt's foot and into the floor or whatever it was. So that's honestly about the only criticism I have this entire video. Let's keep watching.
Korea, and then here in Italy, and then on to Russia, well known to fans all over the world. Murillo stuffed one-on-one. What a block by Micah Christensen. Beat the block.
So I love that play. First of all, an incredible one-on-one block move by Micah Christensen. Like, super big coming out party for him. A 6'6" setter, being physical, like getting up and stuff blocking an international superstar. But what I like about what Sunderland did there is he was talking, it got cut off at the beginning of the clip, but he was talking about Sean Rooney, the guy who was serving that ball, giving background on who he was as a player. He's talking about where he had played overseas, talking about his age, his competitive history. He won Olympic gold. He was on that roster in 2008, played for Pepperdine, whatever the background he was giving, telling the people at home more about the player, more about each individual player. It's important. It makes you feel like you know the guys a lot better. And then he timed his conclusion of that very, very well with where the play was, because then as soon as he's done talking about that, the ball is being passed. And so then he's freed up to talk about what's going on the court at that point. And pretty immediately he has a pretty sweet, exciting play. And he gives like a Murillo is stuffed one-on-one. What a block by Micah Christensen. Gets really excited about it. And I love that call. That's a perfect call, a perfect transition from giving background to getting excited about the play that just happened. Let's keep going.
Crushed cross court that time by Taylor Sander.
So first of all, that was a bomb. That was one of Taylor Sanders' many just absolute bombs in this match. And Sunderland was again opting for not talking that much during the play, instead just reacting after the play, doing kind of an analysis thing. And I actually really like just the simplicity of crushed cross court that time by Taylor Sander. I love that. I think that's great. It's simple. It's perfect. And when they see the replay, people understand how cool of a swing that was. But don't worry, because as Taylor Sander continues to hit more bombs in this match, Sunderland will continue to increase his reactions.
Rooney keeping that ball in play. Transition opportunity here. Lucarelli will take an off-speed swing. Bettering the ball. Combination play, and what a smart tip. Taylor Sander with a great read. And
so that was a really interesting one, because since that rally was pretty long, I think each team possessed the ball twice, which is way longer than average. You could tell Sunderland was being totally quiet in the very beginning, but when Sean Rooney tipped that ball over the block and Brazil got it and set an out-of-system ball to Lucarelli on the outside, Paul jumped in and started commentating touch by touch. And he did a nice job of describing how Sean Rooney made a good choice by tipping that ball over the block, just keeping it in play, not doing anything overly aggressive, and then describing Lucarelli's swing out of system, how he tapped it off the block. Then he said, bettering the ball, combination play, and then when Taylor Sander tipped that ball out of the bic short to zone 2, he said, what a smart tip, and Taylor Sander with a great read. And he did a phenomenal job there of getting super excited about a tip. And that tip was pretty nasty. It was deserving of excitement. And I just really like how he transitioned with the flow of what was going on in a long rally from kind of analysis mode to play-by-play mode. I thought that was really professional.
that ball might have been going out of bounds. Good pass. Taylor Sander crushing that ball across court. The volleyball fans in the.
So that the U.S. was facing set point there. They were down 24-23, and Taylor Sander in rotation one, who was totally a go-to guy that whole season, kind of still is when he's there on the right side, hits another bomb cross court one-on-one. And what unfortunately got cut off there, but I remember Sunderland saying this, is after he hits that ball, he goes, the volleyball fans in Verona are going to love this kid. because Taylor Sanders had just graduated college. He was just coming to play his first professional season in Italy, and being that this match was in Italy, that was a nice little bit of background that he added there. So before this next play happens, I want to give context. This is set point U.S. It's pretty deep. It's, I don't know, it's 31-30 or something like that. The U.S. is up 1. Just before that, or no, it's not set point yet. That comes a little bit later. But just before this play, there was a controversial play. This was the first year of the challenge system, and Brazil was up 1, and they Wallace, their opposite, tapped the ball off the block and scored and killed it. And Brazil had thought they had won the set. But Micah Christensen earlier in the rally was complaining about a net violation from Brazil. So John Sproul, the coach, challenged it. It was very, very clear that Murila, the left side blocker, while piking towards the net, actually hit the top tape with his forehead. It was a really interesting play, and the review couldn't have been more clear. It was a very obvious net violation. But Brazil just went crazy. They were arguing about this replay, arguing about this call. I don't really know why, but it got pretty heated, and it's extra points in set 1, the World League Finals. So that immediately leads to this.
Oh, was correct. Stuff blocked by Max Holt. And now the United States will have their second.
So Max Holt, 1-on-1 out of the middle, one-handed Kong block in a 28-28 set in the World League Finals. Insane. So a couple points later, you get this on the American set point.
Easy serve. Oh, stuff straight down. It's not good.
Man, how awesome is that? David Lee with just a 1-on-1, just God caliber read on the Bic, straight down clamp block, and the call is even better. Oh, stuff straight down. And then he just lets it breathe. He lets the crowd noise take over, lets the replays be shown, he lets you see the Americans celebrating that they just won set 1 of the World League Finals. Awesome, just professional call to bring some hype to it, and then just let the play breathe. I think that's so cool, especially when you can watch the replays of that.
But they're up 1-0. Oh, Taylor Sander is just crushing the ball.
Now there is the escalation and excitement about Taylor Sander 1-on-1 bombs. That's a great call. That's a great way to bring the excitement, and that's an incredible piece of volleyball right there. Running that back two, totally fooled the outside blocker, beat him to the inside, and Sander just exploded on that ball. I love that play.
Christensen coming out of the timeout. Good serve, but another perfect pass. Oh, Wallace. That is one great jumper right over the top of another. Look.
Awesome play there by Brazil. Incredible set by Bruno to grab that ball tight off the net with two hands. But Sunderland, you could very clearly tell that he was going for the play-by-play approach from the beginning of that rally, where he was, kind of narrating every touch of the ball. Like, good serve, but an even better pass. Oh, Wallace. What's one great jumper right over the top of another? And I love that. That's a phenomenally good call. Let's see what happens next.
Magatutia after that good chase. Taylor Sander! What a play by Magatutia. Taylor Sander now with 13 points, but the dig was...
Ooh, that cut off just a little bit. He ends up saying, but the dig was the play. That was the play of the match, for sure. Garrett Magatutia with an unbelievable play out of middle back, runs that block touchdown, diving one-handed stab, and then an underrated part of that play, an unbelievable bump set by Micah Christensen. And Taylor Sander finds a seam in the block and pounds that ball. Another really good call by Paul Sunderland, man. That's just the best in the business. Doing his thing, giving credit to how good the dig was, obviously, and understanding that was really the thing that made that play so great. That's a testament to his volleyball background.
He's already got an ace so far this evening. Stuff block again. Twice on the back quick.
This is a great one. So I remember this very clearly from watching that entire World League. Brazil had been running that exact play, that back one from Bruno to Lucas. And anyone who's watched the Brazilian national team play for a long time knows that those two guys have the greatest header-hitter chemistry, maybe of all time, at least from center to middle. Those guys can run anything, anywhere on the floor. They do just some ridiculous things. But the whole season, that whole World League, they were tearing people up on the back one, that quick tempo set right behind the setter. And there was you heard Sunderland say twice on the back quick because David Lee made that read there and stuff blocked that ball for a second time. Because there was one earlier in the match that they didn't show in this highlight video, but I remember when it happened. I was watching the match. I was at Purdue summer of 2014 watching this match with a bunch of volleyball friends of mine. And when David Lee made that first move to stuff block Lucas on the back one, I said something like, "Oh, somebody finally stopped the back one this summer against Brazil." And Sunderland immediately after that said, "Somebody finally stopped the back one against Brazil." Like, pretty much exactly what I said. So I thought that was funny. And then he makes reference to that call again, or that like theme again of Brazil having a lot of success with that, but David Lee being on another level in his read blocking in this particular match. And that shows that he had been watching the entire World League to know that that was the thing that Brazil had success with, which helps tremendously if you understand who teams are as teams, what they like to do. It helps you broadcast them a lot better.
Respect for their opponents. They know that Brazil is good enough, that the United States is good enough. What a dig by Shoji. Stuff blocked by the United States. But just to finish that thought, even if the Americans...
So that was an interesting one from a commentary point of view. First of all, Eric showed you with just the most ridiculous dig maybe ever. I don't know how it's possible to react to something that fast and then pop that ball straight up with one hand like that. But it was funny because Paul Sunderland was talking about something like about how these two teams have played at such a high level for such a long time, how they have so much respect for one another. But then right away, immediately, an incredible play happens, and he has to totally stop talking about what he was talking about to address the ridiculous play that just happened in front of him on the court. And that's an interesting thing about commentating volleyball, because it's hard to, talk for 2 or 3 minutes at a time about the same thing. If you're like trying to give a bunch of context about the season or about a player or about a rivalry or about whatever it is, and then all of a sudden something incredible happens on the court that you can't help but talk about. It's just another thing that makes broadcasting volleyball hard. And Paul did a good job of rolling with this there and also giving credit to how great that dig was.
Into the fourth set. Straight down again. What a match by David Lee.
Oh, man, what a block. And yeah, seriously, what a match by David Lee. He was absolutely going off on the blocking end in this match. I think this whole match is available on YouTube. You should really just go look it up. It's incredible. And Sunderland with a call of straight down again. What a match by David Lee. Just perfect. Perfect.
Nobody up on Anderson. What a set that time by Christensen. Brazil will come back.
Another great call, another amazing play. This is the point in the match. It was set 3. The U.S. was kind of starting to roll. They were starting to really gain momentum. And Christensen with a ridiculously good set to get Matt Anderson a wide open 1-on-none look on the right side. Puts it down with no doubt. And Sunderland doing the right thing and crediting the setter for that play. As the match has gone on, you can tell the increase in his levels of excitement as the commentator, and that's exactly the right thing to do.
Wrong. Make no mistake about it. This match is far from over. Wallace! Oh, what a shot. Beautiful dig by Lucarelli. And then the ball serving.
Another thing I have to give Paul Sunderland a heck of a lot of credit for is being impartial in this match. Obviously, he's American. He played on the American national team. He went to the Olympics. Obviously, you would think that he's rooting for the U.S. in this match, but he does such a good job in, even though you probably know he's American, if not by who he is, at least by his accent. He does such a good job of giving both teams the same amount of credit and the same amount of excitement. Commentating volleyball from an unbiased perspective, he deserves a ton of credit for that, for being so professional. And that play by Wallace was ridiculous. So this is match point. And before this match point happens, I was thinking earlier about if commentators really know what they're going to say when like when the match is over, if they have a plan for what they're going to say on match point. I think in general the answer is no. But you kind of at the same time have to have a little bit of a plan. You have to adapt it for what happens on the court to score the winning point, of course. But you know that the winning point has to be the climax of the entire thing. It's got to have a great call to go along with it. So I don't know how much of this next call Paul Sunderland had planned out in advance, but I think it turns out pretty good.
Anderson missed it out of bounds. A net violation is called a touch. The Americans have won the goal.
So that is a tough one. That is a tough championship point to call as a commentator, because it looked like from when I watched this live, I'm like, oh man, Matt Anderson missed that ball way out of bounds. But Sunderland noticed immediately that the whole U.S. team was celebrating, and then he very quickly understands, even though he probably didn't see the touch on the block, that that's what happened, and that's what is going to give the U.S. the gold medal here. Which, if you don't know the rules, that particular situation, if you don't know the rules, the entire championship point call is kind of ruined. If you're like, oh, I don't know, it looked like he hit that ball out of bounds, but the Americans are celebrating, I don't know what's going on, I guess they won the gold medal. Like, no, you can't do that. You got to recognize very quickly what's going on there, and he did an incredible job. So that's about as good as it gets right there, especially commentating solo. An incredible job by Paul Sunderland, and just a model that I've kind of tried to follow for my own broadcasting as I've started to do a lot more matches over the last couple of years. So that's about all the time that I need to waste of yours. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in and rolling with me on this kind of new format for the show. We'll be back on Friday with a pretty standard show with a guest, and we'll get into the normal routine of interviews with my next couple of guests. But I appreciate everyone tuning in, watching this. So let me know in the comments wherever you're at, wherever you're finding this, if you like this kind of analysis, if you like this kind of breakdown, if you want to see anything else, it's pretty similar. So until Friday's episode, I'm Rob St. Clair signing off. Thanks everyone.